Hey, y'all, Gary with Tennessee Stands. Hey, I have two quick updates for you. I'll try to be brief on this video. So, look, we had some issues with this bill that just passed out a special session because, in our estimation, Tennessee Stands, and by the way, many Tennesseans, I believe, had an issue with the fact that we offered exemptions to all those businesses that may need to comply with edicts from the Biden administration. The general feeling is that's really not the position that we want to be in. That's not the position that the state should be in. But also, we exempted healthcare facilities per Medicare and Medicaid requirements. And so, look, we had some legislators get online after we put out our video. Oh, these people think they're experts, but they were not in the room and they don't know this, and made some pretty strong statements, and also went on to say, we took care of healthcare workers. We protected health. We passed a law and we protected healthcare workers. Well, the contention that we have with that statement is this. You protected healthcare workers so long as hospitals and such are not required by Medicaid and Medicare to force the jab on healthcare workers. Then you've protected healthcare workers. Well, here we are, November 4th. The governor still, by the way, has not signed this into law yet. Okay? Now, it's passed the General Assembly, but it is not yet law. In fact, the governor constitutionally has 10 days, minus Sundays, to either veto or sign the bill. If he does not respond, and I believe if my math is correct, that would be on November 11th. If he does not sign the bill or veto the bill by November 11th, the bill would become law on November 11th. But nonetheless, it is still not law in the state of Tennessee. All right, so November 4th rolls around, and I've got to be thinking the federal government sees what's going on, right? They see, because we went around town. Hey, Tennessee, we passed the most comprehensive COVID bill in the country. That was the statement. The most comprehensive. It's the best. Well, the federal government already on November 4th, before the law has even been signed, has called our bluff. Let me pull this up for you. Today on November 4th, I always find it interesting. They don't call it the Biden administration. It's always the Biden-Harris. Almost like we're expecting Harris to take over at any minute now, right? Anyway, the Biden-Harris administration has already, November 4th, it's not even law yet, has now passed a requirement. CMS, Medicare, Medicaid, now has to require all healthcare workers to get the jab. And check this out. This is going to impact 76,000 healthcare providers and over 17 million healthcare workers across the country. 17 million healthcare workers across the country. This is the kind of impact we're talking about, this unlawful, unconstitutional edict coming from the Biden-Harris administration. Check this out. Here's what needs to happen. The requirement is that if it's a 2-dose vaccine, healthcare workers have to receive 1 dose by December 5th. And then they have to receive the full 2 doses, be fully vaccinated by January 4th. So that's the new orders coming down from the White House. So guess what? All of you healthcare workers in Tennessee that are subject to Medicare, Medicaid, means you work at a hospital, emergency services, assisted care, long-term living, long-term care, hospice, all of these things, and you're subject to Medicare, Medicaid requirements, you're getting the jab. You're going to quit your job or you're getting the jab. In Tennessee, the state of Tennessee, in a bill that was to protect your constitutional liberties, has provided you no help. They're not coming to your aid on this. You are on your own. You are subject to federal regulations. Here's the other thing I want to point out. So big news number 2 is apparently our Attorney General entered into a lawsuit today with Kentucky over these mandates in terms of the mandates coming down to federal contractors. This is regarding the federal contractor exemption piece. And it's interesting. I want to take you to the lawsuit right now, some language. So this is the lawsuit complaint. Let's see, I'm on page 10. This is the complaint filed in Kentucky Federal Court, Eastern District of Kentucky, and it's consisting states Kentucky, Ohio, and Tennessee, and actually 2 sheriffs in Ohio filed a lawsuit against the federal government over these mandates. And I want to draw your attention to this language. Part of the allegations against the federal government per the states is this: because the mandate claims to preempt all contrary state law. And there's 3 different things. And they talk about state sovereignty, state quasi-sovereign issues, and they're claiming that, which is true, the state, per the 10th Amendment, has a sovereign right to make health policy over the people. That is true, because the Constitution has not enumerated any rights to the federal government to institute anything regarding health policy. So this is a claim, but I want you to pay attention to the piece that would grant Tennessee standing. What's the injury? Well, the injury is because the federal mandate claims to preempt all contrary state law. Remember, we've talked about this thing called standing quite a bit, right? Because we got some personal experience. We continually get kicked out of court because we don't have standing. Just like the state of Texas got kicked out of the Supreme Court for challenging the election. They didn't have standing. This is what courts do when courts don't want to adjudicate an issue. And part of the problem we had with the law that was recently passed, the omnibus bill, is that they exempted federal contractors, which means they created no conflict, which means there's a reasonable assumption to be made that this federal judge may just throw this case out of court for lack of standing. Why? Because the claim is that what you've done is contrary to state law. But it's actually not, because our state law exempts federal contractors so that they may comply with the mandate. So where's the standing? Because there's no direct injury. No contractors, the federal contractors, are not being injured because state law makes no requirement on them, puts no burden on them to comply with anything outside of what the federal government is saying. And I want to point you to this because the biggest issue is dealing with the Oak Ridge National Laboratory. And we know that huge federal contractor in working under a contract by UT for the federal government in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. I just want to point out, because the idea was that we had to protect the Oak Ridge National Laboratory. This is a link to a news article just on October 13th. Did you know that ORNL is being sued by their employees because the employees at ORNL don't want the jab, and ORNL is forcing the jab, even though it's not really necessary yet to comply with federal regulations. And so they're getting sued. So what Tennessee should have done is stepped in and protected the constitutional rights and liberties of these employees who don't want to be jabbed, who are already taking the federal contractor to court over the forced jabs. And here's the other egregious thing. These employees submitted for medical and religious exemptions. And look what ORNL decided to do. They decided that for those claiming a medical or religious exemption, that they were going to accommodate them. Do you know what the reasonable accommodation was? By putting them on indefinite unpaid leave. So great, we're going to give you a religious exemption. By the way, the federal government, the mandate it's putting on contractors does not require that you cannot give a medical or religious exemption. And actually, in fact, it allows it. So ORNL is choosing on its own to ignore medical and religious exemptions, and or they're granting them by telling you, you no longer get paid and you can't come to work. You're not fired. You just can't come to work, and we're not paying you until you get the jab. That's the accommodation. And so those are the people that we're protecting and are you confused yet? Because I am. Okay, so bottom line, here's where we are today. Our Attorney General sued the government in federal court, actually joined in a Kentucky lawsuit along with Kentucky and Ohio, on the basis that a federal mandate would force contractors to operate in such a way that is contrary to state law. Unfortunately, in Tennessee, that's not the case, because state law allows them to be exempt to fulfill their federal contract. So I'm no legal expert, but I'm just speculating that there is a high probability that the federal judge finds that the state of Tennessee has no standing in this lawsuit. Let's just wait and see. And lastly, every healthcare worker now is subject to the jab because the state of Tennessee failed to protect the constitutional liberties of those individuals. And before this bill even became law, the federal government has already called our bluff. They smelled blood in the water, and they've already called our bluff and made this mandate via Medicare and Medicaid. Thank you, Governor Bill Lee and the lovely state of Tennessee.
Told you so. Oh, I told you so. I told you someday you'd come crawling back and asking me to take you in. I told you so.